Welcome to the new season of the Venusian Academy. So, I want to start this next phase inside of the Venusian Academy by talking about living New Age spirituality, but without going back to religion and the importance of this. And I'll give you some background on this. So, I think it's pretty obvious by now for all of us that there is a massive awakening happening all over the world. I think the more time that passes and the more conflict and horrible things that happen in the world, the more that we humans are being forced to awaken to our spiritual nature. So I see this time as the Big Awakener. Collectively, we're starting to rise up and raise our consciousness, and usually we can see that whenever we see as much duality and polarity and as much darkness rising up. Because if we see the darkness rising up, the light is also rising up. So this is a season of a massive collective awakening. Now, whenever it comes to, talking about like spirituality and religion and all of that, it seems that, for most of us, when we had our spiritual awakening, it's like, okay, either we stay with Western religions, which for most of us is like, no, thank you, or we move to the Eastern religions, or we just go into New Age spirituality, get the crystals, the tarot cards, get into astrology, and just kind of start exploring in this way. So whenever we look at this transition between Western into Eastern religion, this is the path for a lot of people, and this actually works for a lot of people. But it can feel for some of us too restricting. I started exploring religion at a very young age, and I couldn't really, even though I actually have a minor in religion from college, because that's how much I wanted to understand, once we get out of the Abrahamic religions, what's out there. And even though I adopt so many of the philosophies of Eastern religions, I just could never commit to either one because of the dogma. But whenever I stepped into New Age spirituality, there is shamanism, for example. I also couldn't commit there because there was a lot of dogma there as well. Like basically, I was anti-dogma. That's what I was just like, no, I cannot do this anymore. I have like a lineage that has had enough of that. So I wanted to try something, something that felt good to me. But straight up New Age spirituality felt too ungrounded. And whenever I speak to some of my mentees and clients, like this is one of the things they say, before I kind of found this path that I'm going to talk to you about today, there was this sense of ungroundedness, we can just do kind of whatever, and it can get chaotic and disorganized. And that's whenever there's this like dark night of the soul, and when you don't have enough foundations to guide and lead yourself through that process, it can feel very disruptive to our nervous system, to our psychology, to our mind, and to our emotions. So there had to be a middle path, and that's what I'm going to be exploring today. The middle path, right? Not religion, not New Age. And what does it look like, right? So I discovered this for myself after, like I said, studying in college, all the different religions, getting into, understanding some of the shamanic influences. And I began kind of grabbing a little bit from everything, which they all tell you don't do that. Don't grab a little bit from everything. Stick into one and then commit to one. And recently, I've been preparing my dissertation to finish my doctorate in ancestral healing. So I've been diving deep into this type of work, and it's been a couple years of just like, okay, there has to be something. What I realized is that just like we can see life evolving, like humanity has evolved. What was acceptable 500 years ago is definitely not acceptable anymore. And there are some things right now that are acceptable for us that most likely in 500 years are not going to be acceptable. We're constantly evolving. And this evolution is not only happening at a physical, physiological, and mental level. This evolution is also happening at a spiritual level. And whenever we look at, as psychology, especially Jungian psychology, there is this process of maturation, of individuation, which is basically separating yourself from the mind hub that you come from, and like going to this darkness so you can get to know yourself, and in this separation to really understand your core, your soul, and the unique lessons that the soul has for us. And under this principle, I understood that we are currently, a lot of us going through this spiritual maturation process. What is that? Well, whenever we live at home, we have to obey the rules of, the household and our parents, and we have to kind of follow what is said. And there's this certain, values that are given to us because, mom and dad had them, and then they are given to us, and then we just accept them. And society has all these other values. Spiritual individuation, it's about saying, like, wait a minute, I'm going to question everything that I think I know, every single value that I hold, and I'm going to explore what is important to me, what are my own values, what is the root and foundation of my spiritual life and my spiritual practice. And from there, I'm going to grow as an individual. It's like, separating to know myself, and therefore I become like, I identify myself as this being having human experience, knowing that at the core my soul is one with everything that is. However, in this lifetime, we live in a reality of duality. I say this a lot all the time because it's true. We do live in a reality of duality. Therefore, we do have to acknowledge that even though our souls are one, we are individual, we are separate, we have our own separate identities. So this led me into a better way, which is basically creating your own spiritual system as an organizational system rooted on principles that are ancestral, principles that are given to us by the ancient ones, but without the dogma that over the years, certain philosophies just kind of build on top of themselves. And then we do have dogma. That's inevitable. That's just, that's just part of life. And I was born a rebel, I couldn't fit into the old, and I couldn't fit into, the new for my family, but still old. I had to find and pave my own way. And whenever I did this, I was able to find freedom. And this is a method that I've been teaching my mentees and my clients inside of my mentorships and coaching programs, which is create your own spiritual system in the same way that religions have been created, in the same way that the Thelemites kind of say, like, all right, let's just let go of all of these preconceived notions and explore my spiritual depth without any control, but aligning with principles that are feminine centric, because that's something that for me personally, like, that's encoded in my soul. That's not something that I learned from my family or from school or from anything. It's something that I felt in my being my entire life, this connection to the feminine essence of life. So what's the difference between that and New Age spirituality, right? Because it sounds almost the same. Like, that's what, a lot of New Age spirituality says. It's like, you do your own thing. Well, the difference is that you're going to basically create a structure, a religion, a way of organizing the world with something that already exists. So I'm going to give you an example. You could technically create your own personal religion using astrology as a filter. What does that mean? That means that everything in my life, everything that happens, I start organizing it into the different planets or the different houses. And whenever life starts giving me material for me to understand myself, to, look at the mirror of my soul, I'm going to be able to have something to use as a reference point. For example, I'm engaging with a man. I know I'm dealing with Mars. What's my relationship to Mars? What do I know about Mars? What's the wisdom that Mars has taught me throughout my life? And over time, you're going to notice that you start creating almost like your own cheat code and your cheat sheet to encode the nuances of your psychology, of your mind. What are your limitations? What parts of yourself are you're still blinded to? Because life helps you. See, life helps us all. It's constantly giving us and showing us, okay, this is one more thing that you have to look at. You're not seeing this, so I'm gonna throw you this little trigger so you can finally wake up and see it. So the difference between New Age and this way, which I call Venusian Tantra, at least the one that I follow, not astrology, Venusian Tantra, is that I design my own spiritual system based on the 10 phases of Shakti, the 10 powers of Shakti. Well, actually, Shakti is the power of Shiva. So it's like, it's divine feminine centric spirituality. There is a risk to this, right? Because if you speak to any Eastern Tantric under like the right hand path of religion, they will tell you it's blasphemy to even think that you can, create your own tantra without a guru. And again, this path is not for everybody. This is for the rebellious souls that say, well, I just don't fit in anywhere, therefore I have to carve my own path. I have to create my own way. And this is a risky path. Why? Because you have to take radical responsibility for your soul. And this is not for the people that are very fearful about things. Like if you're a person that is afraid of tarot cards, afraid of the dark, afraid of the unknown, like this is not the way. Technically, what I'm describing is considered left-hand spirituality, left-hand paths. The left hand is taboo, unorthodox, unaccepted, feminine in nature. See? So if there's still a lot of fear in you, it's better to grow spiritually by choosing a path. It doesn't have to be, Western religion. It can be a shamanic religion system that is already created, connected to a group of people. But if you have conquered and mastered your fear, and you are rebellious in nature, and you want to expand and grow and get to know yourself, and you just have this hunger for depth, like the real depth of the soul, and you want to take it on your own hands, responsibility for your soul, for your mental and spiritual well-being, and responsibility for whatever happens in your life and your soul in general, then this is definitely a path for you. This is, it does require radical responsibility. And even though I would say it's, risky for the mind, because the mind doesn't do well with things that are completely unknown, it is a very fruitful path. So if you are a rebel like me and you want to break free and create your own thing, right? Do it. I encourage you to find a system that works for you. Like it can be, like astrology, like I used an example. It can be Venusian Tantra, which you will learn about here in the Venusian Academy. Or it can be numerology. It can be anything that's going to give you a little bit of structure, of order from something that already exists. And then you begin creating and building for yourself. You're practically creating your own religion that you're going to follow yourself. It's not your own religion so you can start a cult. I mean, maybe you want that, but don't recommend it. But this is so you can kind of use yourself as this research project of the nature of being a human being. And the nature of, the depth of our spirit. It is a very fruitful path because once you start connecting the dots, there's a moment in which everything just clicks. And once it clicks, there's no going back. This is a path of freedom of the soul, freedom of your emotional nature. If you expect to be celebrated, accepted, or receive confirmation from the outside world that you're doing the right thing, again, not for you. Radical responsibility, and you do have to remain very grounded. In order to do this process, you have to have your dark night of the soul. You have to have confronted your shadow already. You have to be very intimate with those darker aspects and parts of yourself. And if this is your vibe and you are into individuation and into deeper exploration, then I encourage you to just leave religion behind. Create your own individual personal religion that works for you and expand and grow within those boundaries that you created yourself. This is the ultimate freedom, to be able to submit to something that you love. All right, guys, I will see you next time. And don't forget to check out my description box below for resources to join the Venusian Academy for free. I have a bunch of free masterclasses. And if you are new to my channel, please subscribe, interact with the algorithm, help a girl out over here. And again, see you guys next time. Bye.